everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again with another news video, our second of the day. Make sure to check out Tom Campbell's news video earlier on because there were some big stories there. And there's some big stories here as well. So, without any further ado, let's take a look at those lovely headlines. First of all, we take a look at potential details of The Undertaker's future plans following that Boneyard match at WrestleMania. Next up, a top NXT superstar is reportedly off TV for the foreseeable future. And finally, Drew McIntyre reveals that he broke one of WWE's golden rules at WrestleMania. So first of all, let's talk about The Undertaker. Now, I'm sure that the vast majority of you will know what happened with The Undertaker at WrestleMania, but if not, I'm going to give a quick little recap right now. Undertaker main evented night one of WrestleMania 36, taking on AJ Styles in a Boneyard match, which proved actually by the end of the whole weekend to only be the second weirdest match of WrestleMania weekend. The first one being, of course, John Cena versus The Fiend. But the Boneyard match was also its fair share of out of the box. It was strange, it was shot on location, it was high-end production, it was divisive, but a lot of people certainly did enjoy it for what it was, which was wacky, cartoonish, melodramatic, and ultimately it was, even I have to admit, it was very entertaining. And Undertaker ultimately did win that match, and he seemed to bury AJ Styles alive at the end of it as well, which leaves questions open for what's going to happen to Styles in the future. When's he going to come back? How is he going to come back? When are they going to explain what happened to him? And how are they going to explain what happened to him as well? What's really going to go on there? But for now, we are focusing on what's next for the dead man. The Undertaker, not AJ, for Undertaker. So now let's head to WrestleVotes, who say, and this is word for word, all indications from 3 different sources I've spoken to believe that whenever we see The Undertaker next, it will indeed be this new American Badass style Taker from the Boneyard match this past Saturday. What they mean by that is that in that match, The Undertaker was sort of a hybrid of the American Badass with elements of the dead man mixed in as well. So he came in on a bike, he had the bandana, he was trash talking in a way that he would as the American Badass, but also he retained some of his dead man powers. You know, he could shoot flames, he was being all mystical, he teleported at one point. So yeah, it seems like we're going to see this new kind of hybrid version of The Undertaker going forwards. But the question remains, when will that be? When are we next going to see The Undertaker? Now, I have 2 potential theories here. One's with my heart and one's with my head. The soulless head option is that we'll next see Undertaker whenever there's a next Saudi Arabia show and he's going to get a massive payday, and he'll probably be in a singles match against another high profile opponent, whether one of the past or of the present. However, another option which I think could potentially happen could be that Undertaker might save himself for Survivor Series. Now, why Survivor Series? Well, you will know if you know about The Undertaker that he made his debut in WWE, or WWF back then, at the 1990 Survivor Series. This year's would be the 30th anniversary of that. So I think it will be quite a fitting place for Taker to make his next appearance, and potentially even his last appearance in WWE. Now obviously that is massive speculation on my part, but it would be quite fitting to see Undertaker retire 30 years on from when he first made a mark in WWE, at the same event as well, at Survivor Series. But remember 5 years ago, and yes, it was almost 5 years ago now, the Survivor Series of 2015, where those same rumours were floating about, that this could be Undertaker's retirement, this could be his last appearance, where himself and Kane teamed up to see off the Wyatt family, and obviously that didn't turn out to be his last appearance at all. But it was a nice big cool moment for The Undertaker, and it was an event that was treated with appropriate importance in terms of landmarks of his career. So I think we probably will see Taker again at Survivor Series, and he probably will be in some kind of high profile program there to mark his 30th anniversary. However, I don't know whether that'll be his last match or not. And because it'll be in this new American Badass persona probably, does that mean that we're going to see a wrestling match in the ring, or one of these other strange matches that WrestleMania 36 has kicked off in WWE, which are clearly inspired by, you know, Matt Hardy's Broken Universe and everything like that? I don't know, it all remains to be seen, but it's very interesting, and we will keep you updated should further details emerge. Next up, a top NXT superstar is said to be off TV for the foreseeable future, and that is none other than the former NXT Women's Champion, Rhea Ripley. Ripley, of course, lost the title to Charlotte Flair in a fairly shocking result on night 2 of WrestleMania, which means that now Charlotte is the NXT Women's Champion, and I guess part of the NXT brand? We'll have to see what happens tonight on NXT. However, in terms of Rhea Ripley, PW Insider are reporting that her work visa has expired, or is about to expire, and she is heading back to Australia to basically renew that visa so she can come back to the United States and continue wrestling for WWE. Now, PW Insider were initially reporting this as Rhea Ripley having already flown back to Australia, which is where she's supposed to be now. However, I have to give a shout out to our news writer, Aidan, who did a bit of snooping and a bit of research. You'll never guess what he did. He went on her Instagram, and she was doing an Instagram live, and he noticed that she was at home in Florida. So she's still there, as far as we know. Now, I don't really know what this means because I don't know enough about the policy in the United States at the moment, given the ongoing global situation, about getting people out of the country once their work visa has expired. How easy would it be for Rhea Ripley to get back to Australia? How easy would it be for Rhea Ripley to stay in the United States? I don't really understand. And once she gets back to Australia, and once she presumably is able to renew that work visa without any issues, how easy would it then be for her to get out of Australia and back to Florida? It's a murky situation, but as far as we can tell right now, it seems like Rhea is still very much in the United States with plans to head to Australia, and then once she's done her business there, she'll hopefully have a new work visa or a renewed one, and she'll be able to head back and carry on as normal. But because of all these complications and all the potential things that could go wrong and cause a delay in that whole situation, it could be a little while before we see Rhea Ripley on WWE TV again. And another question I have is, will we see her on NXT, or was the fact that she lost the title at WrestleMania a bit of a sign that she's going to be moving to one of the other two brands, Raw or SmackDown, and potentially being able to elevate her profile in one of those brands? I don't really know. I would like to see her get another shot at that NXT Women's title, but she's kind of beaten a lot of the other big names in her division, and now that she's lost to Charlotte, I think that Charlotte's going to want to have a lot of fresh matchups down there in NXT, so maybe it makes most sense for Rhea to move up. I don't know. Now, before we move on, I should briefly mention that in our first news video today, Tom Campbell reported on, Goldberg, basically, and he reported on Goldberg's defeat of The Fiend in Saudi Arabia, and then Goldberg's loss to Braun Strowman on night one of WrestleMania 36, which was quite a seismic result, to be honest. He reported on the reasons about that have been reported via various news sources online, so do check out that video if you want to know more. However, in the sort of core article from WrestleTalk, one detail that kind of slipped under the radar was that Jeff Hardy was considered as a possible opponent for Goldberg at WrestleMania. They didn't go into too much more detail about this, however, it just said that Jeff Hardy was apparently considered as Goldberg's opponent rather than Braun Strowman. This all, of course, came about because Roman Reigns did not take part in WrestleMania, and he was supposed to be the guy, I guess, to defeat Goldberg and become the new Universal Champion. As we now know, Braun Strowman stepped in, and he is now the Universal Champion. But can you imagine if it was Jeff Hardy? I mean, I'm not trying to take away from Braun Strowman's achievement. It's obviously a fantastic result in his career. But I can't quite work out how they would have put Jeff Hardy over Goldberg. Obviously, Braun Strowman is bigger than Goldberg. He drilled him with a few finishes. He survived a few spears and got the pinfall. Jeff Hardy would have had to do something with like a weapon maybe behind the referee's back, or maybe just a roll-up. Or no, he can't. You can't have Goldberg lose to Jeff Hardy via a roll-up. It has to be the big swanton, but I just can't picture it in my mind. But the fact that WWE, were apparently considering this is very exciting. I like that idea. And part of me, even though I'm pleased for Strowman, part of me is sad that it wasn't Jeff. Next up, some Raw ratings news. Now, you may know that last week Raw pulled in a very low number in terms of ratings. However, the viewership has increased this week, and even though it's not fixed all the damage for WWE and it's probably not right back to where they want it to be, it is an increase of 19% in terms of the viewership. This week's show was viewed by 2.1 million people, which for Raw is still very low, actually, for WWE's flagship brand and everything. It is an improvement from last week, but again, it's not quite where you'd imagine WWE would want Raw to be. But again, it's an unreal situation. We don't really understand what a normal number is in these circumstances, so I don't quite know how to react to this. However, it did follow the standard pattern of Raw, which is a significant drop from hour 1 to hour 3 at the end of the show. It went from 2.3 million viewers in hour 1 to 1.93 million by the end of the show, a drop of 70%, but a much less severe drop than we've seen over the past 2 weeks. Next up, Ric Flair recently did an interview with Alex McCarthy of TalkSport where he heaped praise upon Randall Keith Orton. Flair told Alex McCarthy, "I think right now he, Orton, is doing some of the best work he has ever done, and I think Edge is too." He goes on to say, "Randy has done and accomplished so much, and he's been there a long time. People don't realize this, but every time he says something, it's the truth." He also says that Orton's level of ability right now and his health are both great. He's at the top of his game, which in my opinion makes him the number one guy. Now, it's odd that Flair sees Randy Orton as the number one guy. To me, that's a very wrestler opinion, Randy Orton is very much a wrestler's wrestler, isn't he? And a lot of wrestlers have come out over the years and said that Randy Orton is one of the greatest of all time, and the fans don't actually realise that as much as people who've actually wrestled him or known him closely in his career. Ric Flair is obviously one of those people, and someone who knows a lot about being one of the best wrestlers in the world, as he was during his heyday, and he reckons that Randy Orton is at the top of his game. He's the #1 guy in WWE. Now, we might look at the product and see the #1 guy as somebody like Roman Reigns, somebody who The Office have clearly got their eye on as the big star of the show, the one that they want to win the matches and be the hero to the kids and everything. But in terms of in-ring ability, there's so much talent on the show that really you could pick one of a number of people in both the men's and women's division to potentially be the best wrestler in the company. It just seems like Ric Flair reckons that Randy Orton is that person. Another reason this is quite a unique point of view by Ric Flair is the fact that Randy Orton has already been there earlier on in his career, hasn't he? Where he's been kind of the 1B to John Cena's 1A at the top of the company. However, it does go to show, and I think we can all agree by watching Randy Orton, that physically he looks fantastic. He doesn't seem to have slowed down in the ring. He still wrestles the same style, which again is going to get some sarcastic comments, isn't it? He's always really slow, but he's not broken down in the ring or anything. He's still wrestling to the best of his ability. His timing's still on point and everything. And I think that it shows his longevity, and it shows what a professional he's been in terms of keeping himself in good condition throughout his career. But I wonder what's next for Randy Orton after losing that last man standing match to Edge at WrestleMania. It's pretty strange. I reckon they might just move him on to another feud. It seemed like that was very definitive and final, didn't it? That final shot of the match with Edge hitting Orton with that concerto, that seemed very much like the end of their feud. Even though it was very personal and very deep, it only led to one match, and that's all it really needed to, in my opinion. So what's next for Edge? What's next for Orton? It remains to be seen. Next up, you may have learned that Japan has declared a state of emergency, which will be in effect for 1 month. Now let's take a look at how that affects New Japan Pro Wrestling. They've cancelled more events all the way through to May the 4th, which includes both Wrestling Dontaku shows. A statement from New Japan reads, in response to the continuing pandemic and in light of a state of emergency across Japan announced on April 7th, New Japan Pro Wrestling has arrived at the decision to cancel all events that were scheduled up to and including Wrestling Dontaku 2020 on May 3rd and 4th. The statement also says that New Japan is kind of exploring the possibility of putting on empty arena matches, or empty arena shows rather, like we've seen WWE and AEW do, and All Japan do, I think, as well, in recent weeks. I think Stardom may have ran 1 or 2 shows with no fans as well recently. However, the statement goes on from New Japan to say that would only happen if staff and wrestler health and safety can be protected to the highest possible standard. New Japan has not run a show since February 26th, I believe, and that has included some pretty big ones as well. It's taken quite an impact, their calendar has, because of the ongoing global pandemic, such as Sakura Genesis, that got cancelled, and the entire New Japan Cup as well, a single elimination tournament in which the winner often gets a shot at the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. That's all kind of been scrapped. Sakura Genesis, one of their big 4, I guess, one of their biggest shows of the year, that's been scrapped as well. So yeah, it remains to be seen what New Japan's next big show will be, but hopefully when they come back, everyone can carry on their momentum. Obviously, Naito is the double champion. You've got various members of that roster who were at the very top of their game coming out of Wrestle Kingdom, and it's sad to see that everything's been put on hold for so long. And finally, Drew McIntyre has admitted that he broke one of WWE's golden rules at WrestleMania. Let's see what he means. Now, you may remember after he defeated Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre kind of reached out to the camera and put his hand almost on the camera itself, as if saying like, this is for all of you, this is for all the fans, thank you very much. There was a lot of talk in the build-up to this match with a lot of people saying if Drew wins, it's going to be really sad for him because this is his big crowning moment and there's no fans there to share it with him. So it looks like that was a little bit of a response to that. Drew kind of saying, this is for all of you, thank you everyone for supporting me. But we'll see what he said about it himself. Drew said, again speaking to Sports Illustrated, one of our rules in WWE is that you don't look down the camera and break the fourth wall like you wouldn't do in a movie, but I couldn't help myself. Now first of all, that's a bit weird because we've seen wrestlers such as, Brock Lesnar, John Cena look straight down the hard cam when they are about to hit a big move, but I guess it means like after the match or in a backstage promo or whatever, you don't look down the hard cam then. I guess that's what he means. But speaking about that little moment he shared with us watching at home, he said, in that moment, I just wanted to thank everybody for supporting me, for supporting WWE during this time and choosing WWE to take your mind off these difficult times. He finishes by saying, I wanted to let everyone know how I felt and I'm so glad we kept that in the show. I wasn't sure if it would be edited because I really meant it. So it seems like even though Drew did break one of WWE's golden rules, it was such a significant moment that it was kind of allowed, and in my mind it enhanced the moment as well. That's all for this news video. Thank you very much for watching. I will give you a match recommendation to watch. We talked about Randy Orton a little bit earlier, didn't we? So I'll recommend my favourite Randy Orton match, possibly his best match, that match against Mick Foley at Backlash 2004. If you've never seen it, oh, it gets intense. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon.